The rain had been falling for hours over the quiet streets of Riverside, California, turning the sidewalks into shimmering mirrors of streetlight reflections. Most people had rushed indoors long ago, escaping the cold wind and heavy drops that soaked everything in sight. But Ethan Walker was still out. Ethan pulled his worn jacket tighter around his chest as he jogged toward the bus stop after finishing a late delivery shift at the small grocery store where he worked nights. At 34, life hadn't been kind to him. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier from illness, leaving him alone to raise their 6-year-old son, Noah. Every day was a struggle. Bills stacked up faster than he could pay them. His old car barely ran. And sleep was a luxury he rarely had. Still, Ethan never complained. He believed kindness mattered, even when life was cruel. As he crossed Maple Avenue, lightning flashed in the sky, followed by a loud crack of thunder that echoed through the empty streets. That's when he saw her. At first, he thought it was a shadow. A small figure crouched near the edge of the sidewalk beneath a broken street lamp. Then she moved. Ethan slowed his steps. It was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. Her long blonde hair was soaked and clung to her face. She wore a thin pink dress that was completely drenched, and her tiny arms were wrapped around her knees as she trembled violently. She was crying. Not loudly, but the quiet, broken sobs of a child who was exhausted and terrified. Ethan's heart dropped. He rushed toward her. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly, kneeling in front of her. "Are you okay?" The girl looked up sharply, fear flashing across her big blue eyes. She tried to stand, slipping slightly on the wet pavement. "Please don't hurt me," she whispered. Ethan raised both hands gently. "I won't. I promise. I'm just trying to help." She hesitated, shaking. "My name's Ethan. What's yours?" "Lily," she whispered. "Lily," he repeated warmly. "Why are you out here in the rain all alone?" Her lip quivered. "I can't find my mommy." Those words struck him straight in the chest. Ethan glanced around. Empty roads, closed shops, no cars passing. "How long have you been out here?" he asked. "I don't know," Lily sniffed. "I was at the park, and then it got dark, and I walked and walked." Fear wrapped around Ethan's heart. This child had been wandering alone in a storm. "Do you know your mom's phone number?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "My nanny had it." "Okay," Ethan said calmly. "That's all right. We'll figure this out together." He removed his jacket and gently wrapped it around her small shoulders. She gasped softly at the warmth. "You must be freezing." She nodded. Ethan carefully picked her up, holding her close to his chest. "You're safe now," he said. "I promise." She buried her face into his shoulder, still crying. Ethan walked quickly toward the nearest open place he could think of, a small 24-hour diner down the street called Rosewood Cafe. When he pushed open the door, the warmth and smell of coffee rushed toward them. The waitress looked up in shock. "Sir, is that child okay?" "I found her alone in the rain," Ethan said urgently. "She's lost." Within minutes, Lily was wrapped in a towel, sipping warm hot chocolate. Ethan called the police. They assured him officers were already searching for a missing child reported earlier that evening. "What kind of parent lets their kid wander off like that?" the waitress muttered. Ethan frowned gently. "Sometimes accidents happen," he said quietly. Inside, Lily clutched his hand tightly. "Please don't leave me," she whispered. "I won't," he promised. Outside, sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Unbeknownst to Ethan, across town, an entire security team was searching frantically. Because Lily wasn't just any lost child. She was the daughter of one of the richest women in America. And when her mother finally arrived, Ethan's life would change forever. The rain didn't slow down. If anything, it grew heavier, hammering against the diner windows like thousands of impatient fingers. Inside Rosewood Cafe, warm yellow lights glowed above the booths, and the steady hum of the heater made the place feel like a safe island in a storm. But Ethan Walker couldn't relax. Not with a lost child sitting across from him, staring into her cup of hot chocolate like it was the only thing holding her together. Lily's small hands were wrapped tightly around the mug. Her cheeks were still pale, and her damp hair clung to her forehead in soft curls. Ethan had given her the booth seat closest to the wall, like a shield, and he sat across from her so she wouldn't feel trapped. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes named Martha, set a plate of fries in front of Lily. "Eat, honey," Martha said. "You need something in your belly." Lily nodded faintly and picked up one fry, nibbling cautiously. Ethan offered a soft smile. "You're doing great." But his chest stayed tight. He'd called the police 10 minutes ago, and they'd said officers were on the way. Still, Ethan couldn't help looking out the window every few seconds, scanning the dark street for flashing lights. He wasn't worried about himself. He was worried about what might have happened to Lily if he hadn't walked by when he did. A child alone in the rain at night. Anything could have happened. Ethan leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "Lily, can you tell me where you were before you got lost?" "You said a park." She nodded, eyes down. "The one with the big fountain," she whispered. Ethan frowned. Riverside had several parks. What color was the fountain? Was it like stone? Or? She shrugged helplessly. "My nanny said we were going to meet Mommy after her meeting," Lily said quietly. "But then my nanny got a phone call and she was mad, and she was talking and walking fast, and I saw a puppy." Her eyes lifted for the first time, guilt washing across her face. "I wanted to pet it," she whispered, tears rising. "I let go of her hand." Ethan's heart softened. "Oh, sweetheart," he said, shaking his head gently. "That's not your fault." But Lily wasn't finished. "I turned around and she was gone," she said, voice shaking. "And I called her and nobody answered. And then it got dark and I couldn't see." Her eyes squeezed shut and a few tears slipped down her cheeks. Ethan reached across the table and gently covered her hand with his. "You're safe now," he said. "That's what matters." Lily's fingers tightened around his. For a moment, Ethan felt something inside him crack, not from pain, but from the reminder of what it was like to comfort a frightened child. He'd done it 1,000 times with Noah. The thought of Noah made his throat tighten. He should have been home already. But he couldn't leave. Not now. Martha returned with a blanket and placed it around Lily's shoulders. "There," she said kindly. "Better." Lily nodded. Ethan pulled out his phone and texted Noah's babysitter. "Running late. Found lost child. Police coming. Please stay with Noah. I'll explain soon." A reply came almost instantly. "Take your time. Noah is asleep. Be safe." Ethan exhaled. At least that part was handled. Then he heard it. A deep engine rumble outside. Not the familiar sound of a police cruiser. This was something heavier, richer. Ethan turned toward the window. Through the rain, headlights appeared, bright, clean, cutting through the darkness like knives. A large black SUV rolled slowly down the street, followed by another one behind it. Then another. 3 SUVs. Ethan sat up straighter, confusion rising. They pulled to a stop directly outside Rosewood Cafe, and for a second everything was still except for the rain. Then the first SUV door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black coat and a sharp suit, even in the rain. He didn't hesitate. He moved like someone trained. Another man stepped out behind him, then another. Ethan's stomach tightened. This wasn't normal. Lily looked up suddenly. Her eyes widened. Ethan turned back to her. Lily was staring past him, toward the window. Her small mouth opened in surprise. Mommy's people," she whispered. Ethan blinked. "What?" Lily's breathing quickened. "They're Mommy's people." Before Ethan could ask what that meant, the cafe door opened. The bell above it chimed softly. All conversation in the diner stopped. 3 men entered. They were clearly security, earpieces, scanning eyes, calm posture. The first one approached the counter and spoke quickly to Martha in a low voice. Martha's face drained of color. Then the man's gaze shifted and landed on Lily. Instantly, his expression changed. He walked toward Ethan's booth, speaking firmly but controlled. "Miss Lily?" he asked. Lily stood up quickly, clutching the blanket around her shoulders. "Yes." The man exhaled, relief clear for the first time. "Thank God," he murmured. Then he looked at Ethan. "Sir, are you the one who found her?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Yes," he said, standing slowly. "Who are you?" The man straightened. "My name is Grant Keller. I'm head of security for Ms. Vivian Hale." Ethan froze. Vivian Hale. Even Ethan, who barely had time to watch television, knew that name. Vivian Hale was one of the richest women in America, a billionaire tech investor whose face appeared on magazine covers beside words like power and empire. She owned half of what people in California use daily: apps, hospitals, security systems, and real estate. Ethan's mind spun. This little girl, Lily, belonged to that woman? Grant leaned closer, keeping his voice low. "We've been searching for hours. We had police involved, private teams, drones." He stopped himself, eyes flicking toward Lily's shaking hands. "But she's here." Ethan stared at Lily, stunned. She looked tiny, fragile, nothing like a child who belonged to that world. A woman like Vivian Hale would have guards, cameras, trackers. How could her child have gotten lost? Grant spoke again, sharper now. "Ma'am is on her way in. She wants to see her daughter immediately." Ethan swallowed. "Of course," he said carefully. "But she was terrified. I don't know what happened, but—" Grant lifted a hand. "I appreciate your help," he said politely, though his tone made it clear his patience was limited. "But this situation is delicate." Ethan didn't like that word. Delicate. It sounded like control. Like secrets. The bell chimed again as the door opened wider. And then she walked in. Vivian Hale. Even in the dim lighting, she looked unreal, tall, elegant, her dark blonde hair styled perfectly despite the rain, her coat expensive, her presence sharp as glass. She wasn't smiling. Her eyes immediately found Lily. The mask cracked for one brief moment. "Lily." Lily ran forward. "Mommy!" she cried. Vivian dropped to her knees and pulled Lily into her arms so tightly it looked like she was afraid Lily would disappear again. Ethan watched, feeling relief, and something else he couldn't name. Vivian's face pressed into Lily's hair, her shoulders trembling slightly. Then she pulled back. She cupped Lily's face with both hands, scanning her like she was checking for injuries. "Are you hurt?" Vivian asked, voice shaking with anger and fear. "Did anyone touch you?" "Did anyone?" "I'm okay," Lily sniffed. "A man saved me." Lily pointed behind her. Vivian's gaze lifted, and for the first time, her eyes met Ethan's. Ethan expected gratitude. Instead, what he saw in her expression made his stomach turn cold. Shock. Then something darker. Recognition. Like she'd seen a ghost. Vivian stood slowly, still holding Lily close. Her eyes didn't leave Ethan's face. "You," she said quietly. Ethan's throat tightened. He had never met Vivian Hale in his life. Or so he thought. Vivian's voice lowered, sharp and controlled. "You're Ethan Walker." Ethan blinked. "How do you know my name?" Vivian's grip tightened on Lily's shoulder. Grant stepped slightly in front of her, tense. Vivian didn't answer right away. Instead, she stared at Ethan like he was something dangerous, something from the past. Then she said the words that made Ethan's blood run cold. "You don't understand what you've just gotten involved in." The cafe felt smaller. The warm glow of the lights suddenly seemed too bright, too exposed, like everything hidden was about to be dragged into the open. Rain battered the windows harder, thunder rolling low in the distance. Ethan stood frozen as Vivian Hale stared at him like he was a mistake from another lifetime. "You don't understand what you've just gotten involved in." Her words echoed in his chest. Ethan swallowed slowly. "I don't understand anything," he said honestly. "Your daughter was alone in the rain. I helped her. That's it." Vivian's jaw tightened. Grant shifted beside her, uneasy. "Ma'am, we can take Lily home now. The police are still searching nearby. We can cancel." "No," Vivian snapped softly. "Not yet." She never took her eyes off Ethan. Lily clutched her mother's coat, confused. "Mommy, Ethan was nice to me. He gave me hot chocolate." Vivian's fingers brushed Lily's hair gently. "I know, sweetheart." But her eyes said something else. Something troubled. Ethan finally found his voice. "Ms. Hale, I don't know what you think this is, but I'm not a threat. I'm just a dad who found a scared little girl." The word dad made something flicker across Vivian's face. "Pain. Old pain." "You're still playing the hero," Vivian said quietly. Ethan frowned. "Excuse me." She let out a slow breath. "Grant," she said softly, "give us a minute." Grant hesitated. "Ma'am, please." Reluctantly, Grant motioned for the other security men to step away toward the door. The cafe was silent except for the rain. Vivian guided Lily back to the booth gently. "Sweetheart, sit here for a moment," she said. "Mommy just needs to talk." Lily looked between them nervously. "Is Ethan in trouble?" "No," Vivian said quickly. "Not at all." Lily relaxed slightly. Vivian sat across from Ethan. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Vivian finally said it. "You saved my life once." Ethan blinked in disbelief. "What?" "10 years ago," Vivian continued, voice tight. "In San Diego. You worked at a mechanic shop near the marina." Ethan's memory stirred. He had worked there briefly before moving to Riverside. "There was a woman whose car stalled on the bridge," Vivian said. "Traffic was moving fast. The engine died. She panicked." Ethan's eyes widened slowly. "I remember," he whispered. He had run into traffic without thinking. He had pushed the car off the bridge lane just as a truck sped past. The woman had been crying, shaking, grateful. But he never knew her name. "That was you," Ethan said. Vivian nodded. "That woman was me." Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "I didn't recognize you," he said softly. "You weren't supposed to," Vivian replied. "I wasn't famous yet. Not rich. Just struggling, like you." Silence settled between them. "You disappeared after that," she continued. "I wanted to thank you properly. But you were gone." "I moved after my wife got pregnant," Ethan said quietly. "Needed cheaper rent." Vivian's eyes softened briefly, then hardened again. "I never forgot you," she said. "But I didn't expect fate to throw you back into my life like this." Ethan shook his head slowly. "I still don't get why your acting like this is a problem." Vivian leaned closer. "Because every time you show up," she said, "everything changes." Ethan frowned. "That sounds dramatic." Vivian gave a humorless smile. "My life is dramatic." She glanced at Lily. "Do you know why I became obsessed with building security companies?" she asked quietly. Ethan shook his head. "Because I grew up powerless," she said. "No money. No protection. My father abandoned us. My mother worked 3 jobs." Her voice trembled. "I swore no one would ever control my life again." Ethan listened carefully. "And yet," she continued, "tonight my daughter slipped away. Even with millions, guards, technology." Her hands clenched. "I still failed her." "You didn't fail," Ethan said gently. "Kids wander. It happens." Vivian's eyes glistened slightly. "You sound just like you did that day on the bridge," she said. "Calm. Fine. Unafraid." Ethan hesitated. "So why do you look like you're angry at me?" Vivian stared at him. "Because kindness ruined me once." Ethan's breath caught. "What do you mean?" Vivian inhaled sharply. "After you saved me that day, I realized someone cared without wanting anything back," she said. "It broke something open in me." She swallowed. "I left an abusive relationship that same week. Started over. Built my company from nothing." Ethan listened, stunned. "You were the turning point," she whispered. A heavy silence fell. "I'm glad," Ethan said quietly. "But that's not all," Vivian added. Ethan's chest tightened. She hesitated, then spoke. "There's something you don't know about that time in my life." Ethan waited. Vivian's voice dropped. "I was pregnant." Ethan's heart thudded once. Hard. "And the man I was with wasn't the father," she said. Ethan's mind raced. "I didn't know whose baby it was," she whispered. Ethan felt dizzy. Vivian lifted her eyes to his. "I had only been with one other man that year." Ethan's breath caught painfully. "No," he whispered. Vivian nodded slowly. "Yes." Ethan's hands trembled. "You're saying—" "Lily," Vivian finished softly, "might be your daughter." The world seemed to tilt. Rain roared outside. Lily giggled quietly at the fries, unaware her entire life was changing. Ethan stared at Vivian, heart pounding so hard it hurt. "That's not possible," he whispered. "I never—" "You helped me that day," Vivian said. "We talked. You walked me home. We had coffee." Ethan remembered. The storm. The conversation. The connection. The single night. His knees weakened. "Oh my God," he breathed. Vivian's eyes shimmered with emotion. "I never told you because I was scared," she said. "Then I became rich. Powerful. And I convinced myself I didn't need anyone." Silence crushed the space between them. "But when I saw you tonight," she whispered, "fate reminded me." Ethan looked at Lily. The blonde hair. The blue eyes. The shape of her smile. His chest tightened painfully. "Why didn't you ever find me?" he asked hoarsely. Vivian's voice broke. "Because I was afraid you'd leave like my father did." Ethan stood suddenly. "I would never leave my child." Tears finally slipped down Vivian's cheeks. "I know that now." Lily looked up. "Why is Mommy crying?" Ethan and Vivian both froze. Ethan slowly knelt in front of Lily. His voice shook. "Lily," he whispered gently, "can I ask you something?" She nodded. "Do you like having me around?" She smiled brightly. "Yes." Ethan's eyes burned. "Good," he whispered, because something deep in his heart already knew. This little girl wasn't just someone he saved. She was someone he was meant to protect. Forever. Ethan barely slept that night. After Vivian finally agreed to leave the cafe, her security team escorting them through the rain into one of the black SUVs, everything felt unreal, like he'd stepped into someone else's life. Inside the luxury vehicle, Lily had fallen asleep almost instantly, curled against Vivian's side, clutching Ethan's jacket like a comfort blanket. Ethan sat across from them, his heart pounding the entire drive. His daughter. The word echoed in his mind again and again. For 6 years, he had believed his family was only him and Noah. Now fate had revealed another child, one he never knew existed. Vivian watched him quietly, studying every reaction. "You don't have to believe it yet," she said softly. Ethan shook his head slowly. "I already do." He looked at Lily's peaceful face. "I can feel it," he whispered. The SUV pulled through tall iron gates into an enormous estate perched on a hillside overlooking the city. Lights glowing warmly, fountains sparkling, guards stationed at every corner. Ethan felt completely out of place. This world wasn't meant for someone like him. They entered a mansion that looked like something out of a movie. Marble floors. Crystal chandeliers. Paintings worth more than Ethan's entire life savings. Yet all he could focus on was Lily. Vivian guided him into a quiet guest room. "Stay here tonight," she said gently. "You shouldn't drive home exhausted. And I don't think Lily would sleep if you left." Ethan nodded slowly. "I don't want to leave," he admitted. Vivian's eyes softened. That single sentence meant more to her than any business deal ever had. Morning sunlight streamed through tall windows. Ethan woke slowly, disoriented, until he heard a soft giggle. He opened his eyes. Lily was sitting on the edge of the bed, swinging her feet. "You snore a little," she whispered seriously. Ethan blinked, then laughed for the first time in years. "I do." She nodded. "Just tiny snores." He sat up slowly. "Did you sleep okay?" Yes, she said happily. Mommy's house is big like a castle. Ethan smiled. Do you like castles? I love them. She leaned closer. Are you really my hero? Ethan's chest tightened. I just helped, he said gently. But you stayed with me, she insisted. You didn't leave. Those words hit deeper than she could ever know. Before he could answer, Vivian entered quietly. Seeing them laughing together made something shift inside her. They already looked like family. Good morning, she said softly. Mommy. Lily ran to her. Vivian lifted her up, kissing her forehead. Did you sleep well? Yes. And Ethan snores. Vivian smiled, amused. I'll remember that. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. Breakfast was served in a massive dining room. But despite the expensive plates and food, Lily insisted Ethan sit beside her. She fed him strawberries. She told him about her favorite cartoons. She held his hand the entire time. Ethan's heart was unraveling. He'd missed 6 years of this. Vivian watched quietly, emotions swirling. After breakfast, Vivian led Ethan into a private office. We should talk, she said. Ethan nodded. Once the door closed, silence filled the room. I'm not asking you to suddenly become part of our world, Vivian said carefully. But Lily deserves to know her father. I want to be her father, Ethan said instantly. Vivian's breath caught. But I also have a son, Ethan continued. Noah. He's 6 too. Vivian looked surprised. He lost his mom when he was 3. It's just been me and him. Her eyes softened. That explains the way you comfort Lily. Ethan swallowed. I know I don't belong in your world, he said quietly. But I belong in my children's lives. Vivian nodded slowly. I'm not trying to buy you out of fatherhood, she said firmly. I want you involved. Truly. Ethan searched her face. Even if that complicates your perfect life. She gave a sad smile. My life was never perfect. It was just rich. Silence lingered. Lily needs stability, Vivian continued. But she also needs love, real love. Not nannies and security guards. Ethan nodded. She deserves both parents. Vivian exhaled deeply. I'm scared, she admitted. Of what? Of losing control, she said honestly. Of opening my life to someone again. Ethan met her eyes. I'm scared too. She looked surprised. I'm scared I'll love her so much it hurts, he whispered. Because I already do. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. That's why I should have found you years ago. Just then Lily burst into the room. Mommy! Ethan! The pool is shiny. Ethan laughed softly. Shiny pool. Yes. It looks like magic water. Vivian wiped her eyes quickly. Looks like someone wants a swim. They spent the afternoon together. Lily splashed wildly. Ethan chased her around the pool. Vivian sat watching, heart full for the first time in years. She wasn't watching a billionaire life anymore. She was watching a family forming. And for the first time, wealth felt meaningless compared to what was happening before her eyes. Later, Lily rested her head on Ethan's chest. Will you come back tomorrow? She asked sleepily. Ethan's throat tightened. I'm not going anywhere, he promised. Vivian heard it, and believed him. But deep down, she knew life wouldn't be that simple. Because the truth about Lily would soon reach the media. The board. The enemies who loved seeing weakness. And when they did, Ethan would be tested in ways he never imagined. The peace didn't last. Ethan should have known it wouldn't. For 2 beautiful days, life felt almost normal, or at least as normal as it could inside a billionaire's mansion. Lily followed Ethan everywhere like a shadow. She showed him her toys, her drawings, her room filled with fairy lights and stuffed animals. She laughed louder than Ethan had ever heard a child laugh. And every laugh healed something broken inside him. Vivian watched it all quietly. Sometimes smiling. Sometimes crying when she thought no one noticed. But on the 3rd morning, everything changed. It started with a phone vibrating. Then another. Then another. Vivian's assistant burst into the breakfast room, pale as a ghost. "Ma'am," she whispered urgently, "it's everywhere." Vivian already knew. She'd seen the headlines lighting up her phone. Billionaire's secret child found. Mysterious man claims to be father. Who is Ethan Walker? Scandal shakes tech Queen Vivian Hale. Photos had already surfaced. Someone had snapped a picture outside the cafe. Another showed Ethan walking into the mansion. The media had moved faster than fire. Ethan felt sick. "What did I do?" he whispered. Vivian stood slowly. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said firmly. "I should have expected this." Security guards rushed in and out. Phones rang non-stop. Her assistant spoke rapidly about reporters gathering at the gates. Stock prices dipping. Board members demanding explanations. Lily clutched Ethan's hand. "Why is Mommy upset?" she asked softly. Ethan knelt beside her. "Sometimes grown-ups get scared when things change," he said gently. "But everything's okay." Vivian watched him, the calm in his voice, the way Lily trusted him completely. It made her chest ache. "Take Lily upstairs," Vivian said quietly to a nanny. "Keep her away from the windows." Lily hugged Ethan tightly. "Don't go. I'll be right here," he promised. Once she was gone, the house erupted into chaos. "Ma'am, the board is requesting an emergency call." "Ma'am, reporters are trying to breach the gate." "Ma'am." Vivian raised a hand sharply. "Enough." The room fell silent. She turned to Ethan. "This is where my world and your world collide," she said softly. Ethan swallowed. "I didn't want this kind of attention." "I know," she replied. She hesitated. "They will attack you," she warned. "They'll dig into your life, your finances, your past. They'll twist everything." Ethan nodded slowly. "I'm not scared of the truth," he said. Vivian studied him. "That's what makes you dangerous to them." A large screen in the room flicked on. News anchors spoke rapidly. Sources claim the man appeared suddenly and may be attempting financial gain. Ethan flinched. "They think I'm using you," he whispered. Vivian's jaw tightened. "They always assume the poor are after money." Her phone buzzed. She read a message and exhaled sharply. "The board wants me to distance myself from you," she said quietly. "They're worried about company reputation." Ethan felt something heavy settle in his chest. "They want you to cut me out. They want me to deny you," Vivian admitted. Silence stretched painfully. Ethan nodded slowly. "I understand." Vivian looked at him sharply. "No, I don't think you do." She stepped closer. "They want me to pretend Lily doesn't have a father." Ethan's breath caught. "They say a scandal could cost billions." He laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "So what's a daughter worth in dollars?" Vivian's eyes filled with tears. "I spent my whole life choosing money because I thought it was safety," she whispered. "And now they want me to choose it again." Ethan met her gaze. "What do you want?" Her voice shook. "I want my family." Those words hit harder than thunder. For years, Vivian Hale had chosen power, chosen control, chosen wealth. And now she was choosing love. Just then, shouting erupted outside the gates. Reporters screaming questions. Flashes of cameras lighting up the estate. Security rushed in. "They're breaking through the outer fence." Vivian's assistant panicked. Vivian turned to Ethan. "You can leave," she said quietly. "I'll protect Lily. I'll tell them it's not true if you want." Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "You'd lie." "I'd burn my empire to keep her safe," she whispered. Ethan stepped forward. "No." Vivian blinked. "I won't run," he said firmly. "I won't let them erase me from her life." "But they'll destroy you," she warned. He shook his head. "I've been broke. I've been widowed. I've been tired and scared and alone," he said softly. "I survived all of it." He lifted his eyes. "I won't survive losing my daughter." Vivian's breath trembled. "That's what a father sounds like," she whispered. Ethan took her hand. "Let them come," he said. At that moment, Lily ran back into the room, having slipped past the nanny. "Why are people yelling?" she asked. Ethan knelt immediately. "Lily," he said gently, "some people are curious about our family." "Is family bad?" she asked innocently. His heart cracked. "No," he said firmly. "Family is the best thing in the world." She smiled. "Good. Because I like our family." Vivian couldn't hold back her tears anymore. Neither could Ethan. Outside, the world was ready to tear them apart. Inside, something unbreakable was forming. But neither of them knew yet. The biggest betrayal wasn't coming from the media. It was coming from someone inside Vivian's empire. The betrayal came quietly. Not with shouting. Not with cameras. Not with chaos. It came with a smile. Vivian's longtime business partner, Richard Coleman, arrived at the mansion just as reporters were being pushed back by security. He stepped out of his silver car calm and polished, adjusting his expensive coat like nothing in the world was wrong. He had helped build Vivian's empire. He had celebrated her victories. He had toasted to her success. And now he was about to destroy everything. Inside the mansion, Vivian was on a call with her legal team when Richard walked in. "My God, Vivian," he said warmly. "This is madness out there." She looked relieved to see him. "Richard, thank you for coming." He opened his arms, and she stepped into a quick hug. "I came as soon as I saw the news," he said softly. "I'm worried about you." Ethan stood nearby, instinctively uneasy. Something about Richard's calm felt wrong. Too calm. "How bad is it?" Vivian asked. Richard sighed dramatically. "Stock dropped 8% in 2 hours. The board is furious. Investors are nervous." Vivian closed her eyes briefly. "But it's manageable," Richard added smoothly. "If we act fast." Ethan crossed his arms. "Act how?" Richard finally looked at him, really looked at him, with thinly veiled judgment. "By controlling the narrative." Vivian frowned. "Meaning?" Richard took a breath. "You publicly deny his claim," he said gently. "Say he helped Lily, yes, but he's not the father. A confused man looking for attention." Ethan's chest tightened. Vivian stiffened. "Absolutely not." Richard raised his hands. "Vivian, think rationally. DNA tests take time. In the meantime, the damage is happening now." "He is Lily's father," she snapped. "You don't know that for certain yet," Richard replied calmly. Ethan stepped forward. "You know I am," he said firmly. Richard's lips curved slightly. "Even if you are," he said quietly, "the company can't survive that truth." Silence slammed into the room. Vivian stared at him in disbelief. "You'd erase a father to protect stock prices?" "I'd save what we built," Richard said smoothly. "This empire feeds thousands of families. You're risking all of it for one emotional situation." Ethan saw it then. To Richard, Lily wasn't a child. She was a liability. Vivian's voice shook with anger. "Get out. Vivian, get out." Richard held her gaze for a moment. Then his expression hardened. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "And mistakes can be corrected." He turned and walked out. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "He's dangerous," Ethan said softly. Vivian nodded. "I know." That night, the mansion was locked down. Security doubled. Lights burned through every hallway. Yet Ethan couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. Too quiet. He stood near Lily's bedroom watching her sleep peacefully, her small chest rising and falling. His daughter. "I won't let anyone hurt you," he whispered. Footsteps echoed softly behind him. Vivian approached. "You should rest," she said. "I will soon." She stood beside him, watching Lily. "Richard has more power than I realized," she admitted. "He controls major investors." Ethan frowned. "He threatened you?" "Yes," she whispered. "In his own polite way." Silence stretched. "Do you regret choosing us?" Ethan asked quietly. Vivian looked at him sharply. "Never." She took his hand. "For the first time in my life, I'm not choosing money. Ethan squeezed her fingers. Just then, a sharp alarm blared through the mansion. Red lights flashed. Security radios crackled. Intrusion at the East Wing. Vivian's heart dropped. Ethan ran instantly. They sprinted down the hallway toward Lily's room. A guard shouted, "Someone disabled cameras!" Ethan's blood turned cold. They burst into Lily's room. The window was open. Curtains blowing in the wind. The bed was empty. "Lily!" Vivian screamed. Ethan's heart stopped. Security flooded the hallway. A black van exited the east gate 2 minutes ago. Vivian collapsed to her knees. "No, no, no." Ethan grabbed a guard. "Who was on duty?" The guard swallowed. Mr. Coleman ordered a shift change. Everything clicked. "Richard." Ethan's fists clenched so tight they shook. "He took her," Ethan growled. Vivian sobbed, breaking. "He took my baby." Ethan knelt in front of her, gripping her shoulders. "Listen to me," he said fiercely. "I will bring her back." Tears streamed down her face. "He has money, power. He'll disappear." Ethan's eyes burned with determination. He underestimated one thing. What? A father who has nothing to lose. Ethan stood. "Call the police. Lock down every exit in the city." Vivian nodded shakily. Ethan ran toward the garage. Rain began again outside, hard and furious, just like his heart. Richard thought this was business. Ethan was about to show him it was war. The rain poured like the sky itself was breaking apart. Ethan sped through the dark streets in a security SUV, windshield wipers barely keeping up, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst through his chest. 2 guards sat beside him, tracking traffic cameras and GPS data from the mansion's security system. "They disabled most feeds," one guard said urgently, fingers flying across a tablet. But the East Gate camera caught part of the van's license plate. "Read it," Ethan snapped. 7K. 3, maybe 8 or B. Ethan slammed the steering wheel. "Where would he take her?" he shouted. The second guard answered quietly. "Richard owns a private warehouse by the old docks. He uses it for storage." Ethan didn't hesitate. "Take me there." The SUV roared forward. Inside Ethan's mind was one image, Lily alone, scared, calling for him like she did in the rain. His chest burned. No one was taking his child. No one. At the mansion, Vivian paced the floor like a trapped animal. "Find her," she kept whispering. "Please find her." Police sirens echoed outside as units flooded the area. Vivian's phone rang. "Vivian," Ethan's voice came through, sharp and focused. "We think Richard took her to the docks." Her breath caught. "I'm coming." "No," Ethan said firmly. "Stay there. If he knows you're moving, he'll run. I can't just." "Trust me," he said softly. "I will bring our daughter home." Her voice broke. "Ethan, please. I promise." The call ended. Vivian collapsed into a chair, hands shaking. The warehouse stood near the harbor, tall, rusted, quiet. Only one light burned inside. Ethan killed the engine and stepped out into the rain. "This is it," one guard whispered. They moved silently toward the metal door. Ethan listened. Inside, he heard crying. Lily's voice. "Daddy!" His blood turned to fire. Ethan shoved the door open. The echo boomed through the empty building. Richard spun around in shock. Lily was tied loosely to a chair, tears streaking her face. "Ethan!" she cried. Richard's calm mask cracked. "You shouldn't be here." Ethan marched forward like a storm. "You touched my child." "Vivian left me no choice," Richard snapped. "She's ruining everything." Ethan grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against a metal beam. "You kidnapped a 6-year-old, Ethan growled. "There is no excuse." Richard struggled. "She belongs with her mother, not some poor mechanic playing hero." Ethan's fist flew. One punch. Richard collapsed to the floor. Ethan rushed to Lily, cutting the rope with a guard's knife. She threw herself into his arms. "I was scared," she sobbed. I know, Ethan whispered, holding her tight. Daddy's here. Police sirens grew louder outside. Richard groaned on the ground. You don't understand, he muttered. If the board sides with me, Vivian loses everything. Ethan glared at him. She chose love over money, Ethan said. And you chose greed over humanity. Officers burst in, guns raised. Police! Don't move! Richard was cuffed instantly. One officer approached Ethan. Sir, we've got him. Kidnapping, conspiracy, tampering with security systems. Ethan nodded, still holding Lily. She's safe now. Back at the mansion, Vivian stood frozen as headlights pulled through the gates. The SUV door opened. Ethan stepped out holding Lily. Vivian screamed and ran. My baby! She wrapped them both in her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Lily laughed through tears. Daddy saved me. Vivian looked at Ethan in disbelief. You did it. I told you, he whispered. She cupped his face. You're incredible. He shook his head. I'm just her father. The words sounded powerful. Real. Reporters were still outside the gates, but Vivian didn't care. For the first time, wealth meant nothing. Family meant everything. But even as happiness filled the air, Ethan knew the fight wasn't over yet. Because the truth about Lily's paternity was about to become public. And the world would judge him harder than ever. The sun rose slowly over Riverside the next morning, but peace didn't come with it. Outside Vivian's mansion, reporters were packed shoulder to shoulder behind metal barricades. News vans lined the road. Helicopters hovered above like hungry birds. The kidnapping had exploded across every channel. Billionaire's partner arrested for child abduction. Secret father risks life to save heiress. Who is Ethan Walker really? Inside the house, everything was quiet. Lily slept between Ethan and Vivian on the massive bed, her small hand gripping Ethan's shirt like she feared he might disappear. Ethan hadn't slept. He watched her breathe, heart full and aching at the same time. She called you Daddy without thinking, Vivian whispered softly. Ethan swallowed. I didn't plan it, he said. It just felt right. Vivian smiled through tears. It is right. A soft knock came at the door. Vivian's assistant stepped in carefully. The DNA lab is ready, she said gently. They rushed the test overnight. Ethan's stomach tightened. This was it. The truth. Vivian squeezed his hand. Whatever the results, she said, you're already her hero. But Ethan needed more than hero. He needed father. They walked down the hall together. The doctor stood waiting with a folder. Silence hung heavy. Ms. Hale, the doctor said calmly, the results are conclusive. Ethan held his breath. You are the biological father. The words hit like thunder. Vivian covered her mouth as tears spilled instantly. Ethan's knees weakened. He gripped the chair. I'm really her dad. 100% certainty, the doctor confirmed. Ethan laughed and cried at the same time. Years of loneliness, struggle, and loss suddenly made sense. Vivian hugged him fiercely. She's yours, she sobbed. She's really yours. And she's ours, Ethan whispered. They stood there holding each other, hearts finally whole. But outside, the world was about to test them. Vivian stepped onto the front balcony an hour later. Cameras exploded in flashes. Reporters shouted, Ms. Hale, is the man really Lily's father? Is this a publicity stunt? Did he plan this for money? Vivian lifted her hand. Silence fell slowly. My daughter was kidnapped last night, she said firmly. And the man who saved her life is her father. Gasps rippled. The DNA test confirms it, Vivian continued. Ethan Walker is Lily's biological father. Cameras went wild. Ethan stepped beside her, heart racing. He is not a stranger, Vivian said loudly. He is not a liar. He is not after my money. She turned and looked at him with love. He is a good man who saved me years ago, saved my daughter last night, and never once asked for anything in return. Ethan swallowed hard. I didn't know Lily existed, he said honestly into the microphones. But the moment I found her alone in the rain, I loved her like my own." His voice shook. "Now I know why." Silence spread. A reporter called out, "Are you planning to sue for custody or money?" Ethan shook his head firmly. "I don't want her money," he said. "I just want my daughter." The words hit the world like lightning. Social media exploded. Videos went viral. People cried watching the rescue footage. Headlines changed within hours. Poor single dad becomes hero father. Billionaire chooses love over power. Greedy partner exposed. Family reunited. The world that once doubted Ethan now praised him. Messages poured in. Support. Love. Offers of help. But Ethan didn't care about fame. He cared about the little girl tugging his hand asking for ice cream. That evening, they finally sat together as a family. Lily bounced happily in her chair. "I have a daddy and a mommy," she announced proudly. Ethan laughed. Vivian wiped tears again. "You always had us," she said softly. "We just found each other late." Ethan leaned closer to Lily. "I missed 6 years," he whispered. "But I'll make up for every single one." She smiled brightly. "Can you come to my school?" "Every day if you want." "Can you read me stories?" "Every night." "Can you stay forever?" Ethan's throat tightened. "Yes, Lily. Forever." Vivian watched them, heart overflowing. For the first time in her life, she felt richer than any billionaire on earth. But one challenge still remained. Ethan's son. Noah. The boy who didn't yet know he had a sister. And the family that was about to grow bigger than any of them imagined. The drive to Ethan's small apartment felt like traveling between 2 planets. Behind them was Vivian's guarded mansion, marble floors, fountains, and luxury cars. Ahead of them was a quiet, worn neighborhood where paint peeled off railings and kids rode bikes in the street until sunset. Lily pressed her face against the SUV window. "Daddy, is this where you live?" Ethan smiled nervously. "Yeah, sweetheart. It's not a castle." She giggled. "I like castles and houses." Vivian reached for Ethan's hand. "I'm glad you didn't try to impress us," she said softly. "This is real life." Ethan nodded. "This is where Noah grew up." They parked in front of a small building. Ethan's heart raced. This moment mattered. "Are you ready?" he whispered. Lily nodded eagerly. Vivian squeezed his hand. They walked up the steps. Ethan unlocked the door. Inside smelled like laundry soap and leftover spaghetti. Toys were neatly stacked in one corner. A drawing of a stick-figure family hung on the fridge, just Ethan and Noah holding hands. Vivian's eyes filled. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ethan smiled sadly. "It's home. Daddy." A small voice came from the hallway. Noah appeared in pajamas, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Why are you home early?" Ethan knelt instantly. "Buddy," he said softly, heart pounding, "I want you to meet someone." Noah frowned curiously. Lily stepped forward shyly. "Hi," she whispered. "I'm Lily." Noah stared. "Are you my friend?" "Maybe," she smiled. Ethan swallowed. "Noah," he said gently, "this is your sister." Silence. Noah blinked. "Sister?" "Yes," Ethan said. "I didn't know about her before. But now I do." Noah looked at Lily. Then at Vivian. Then back at Ethan. "You mean, I have family now?" Ethan nodded. "You always had me," he said softly. "But now you have more love." Noah suddenly smiled wide. "I always wanted a sister." Lily gasped happily. "Really?" "Yes." They hugged instantly like they'd known each other forever. Ethan's breath broke into a laugh of relief. Vivian covered her mouth, crying. "It's working," she whispered. That night, they sat on the floor eating pizza from a box. Noah showed Lily his toy cars. Lily showed Noah her princess doll. They argued over cartoons. They laughed over silly faces. It felt normal. Perfect. Later, Ethan tucked them into bunk beds. "Good night, superheroes," he whispered. Lily giggled. "Daddy says silly things." Noah whispered back, But I like it. Ethan kissed both their foreheads. Vivian watched from the doorway, heart full beyond words. She had board meetings waiting. Business problems. A billion-dollar empire. But none of it mattered more than this moment. After the kids fell asleep, Ethan and Vivian sat quietly on the couch. I was scared you wouldn't like my world, Ethan admitted. Vivian shook her head. I was scared you wouldn't want mine. They laughed softly. Maybe our worlds were supposed to meet, Ethan said. Vivian leaned her head on his shoulder. I spent my life building walls, she whispered. You walked right through them with love. Ethan wrapped an arm around her. You don't have to be strong alone anymore. She closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt safe. But life still had one final lesson waiting. Because healing isn't complete until the past is forgiven. And tomorrow, Ethan would face the man who abandoned Vivian long ago. The same kind of man Ethan swore he'd never become. Morning sunlight filtered softly through the small apartment window, landing across two sleeping children tangled in blankets. Lily's arm was draped over Noah's chest. Noah snored lightly. Ethan stood in the doorway watching them, heart full in a way he'd never known before. Family. Not a mansion. Not money. Just love. Vivian stepped beside him quietly. They look like they've always belonged together, she whispered. They do, Ethan smiled. For a moment, the world felt peaceful. But one last chapter remained. The past. Later that day, Vivian received a call from the hospital. A man had been admitted, heart complications. His name froze her blood. Mark Hale. Her father. The man who abandoned her and her mother when she was young. The man whose absence had shaped her hunger for power and control. Vivian's hands shook. I don't want to go, she whispered. Ethan gently held her shoulders. You don't have to forgive, he said softly. But sometimes facing the past sets you free. After a long silence, she nodded. The hospital room was quiet. Machines beeped softly. Mark Hale lay weak in bed, older than Vivian remembered, eyes tired and filled with regret. When he saw her, tears filled instantly. Vivian. She stood stiffly. I didn't come for apologies, she said coldly. I know, he whispered. I came to give them anyway. His voice cracked. I was a coward. I ran when life got hard. Silence filled the room. You and your mother deserved better. Vivian clenched her fists. You left us with nothing. I know, he sobbed. And I hated myself every day. Ethan stood quietly behind her. Mark's eyes moved to him. You must be Ethan, he whispered. Ethan nodded respectfully. You saved my granddaughter, Mark said weakly. And my daughter. Ethan said softly, we're just building a family. Mark cried openly now. I don't deserve forgiveness, he whispered. Vivian closed her eyes. Years of anger burned inside her. But then she thought of Lily. Noah. Ethan. A family healed. She exhaled slowly. I won't forget, she said. But I won't carry the hate anymore. Mark sobbed harder. Thank you. Vivian turned and walked out, lighter, free. Weeks later, life had transformed. Ethan moved into Vivian's estate, but they turned it into a home, not a palace. The kids went to school together. Ethan found work managing one of Vivian's community housing projects. Not for money. For purpose. Vivian stepped back from ruthless business deals and began investing in shelters, schools, and healthcare. The media called it her soft era. She called it happiness. One evening at sunset, Ethan stood in the garden holding Lily's hand, Noah beside him. Vivian approached smiling. Dinner's ready, she said. Lily grinned. Daddy saved my life. Noah added proudly, and he saves mine every day. Ethan laughed softly. Vivian slipped her hand into his. You saved us all, she whispered. Ethan shook his head. No, he said gently. Love did. They stood together watching the sky turn golden. Billionaire. Single dad. 2 children. 1 family. Rich beyond anything money could buy. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or made you believe in love, kindness, and second chances. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We share powerful real-life inspired stories of struggle, sacrifice, miracles, and emotional transformations that will move you every single time. New stories are uploaded regularly, so hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a life-changing story. Your support helps us continue bringing you meaningful content that touches hearts around the world. Thank you for watching, and welcome to the family.